We have the roll.
Chair Klein. Vice Chair Fortney.
Here.
Commissioner Vargas.
Here.
Commissioner Lightfoot. Commissioner Labonte.
Here.
Commissioner Rudine. Here. Commissioner Wilkerson.
Present.
Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Planning Manager. Do we have any communications?
Good evening. So we have one communication from Ms. Alicia Minion that's been forwarded to the Planning Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. On to item 4, approval of the agenda. Are there any commissioners that would like to see any changes to the agenda? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda approved. Now we have business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda that are within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to comment? Please state your name and keep it to 3 minutes. Okay.
Onto Crimson, which is the entrance to the newly proposed 236 unit apartment site. And our neighborhood received a notice, and I forgot what day, it was like Memorial Weekend. I just remember you ruined my entire weekend. Okay, just so you know. But there was a neighborhood meeting on June 8th, and I had a little bit of time to do some research, and I'm coming here today to ask the Planning Commission to consider agendizing certain things. I'm going to start with number 1. So the Southtown development was subject to a 2004 development agreement, and the apartments was just one part of it. It was an agreement entered into with 3 other developers / landowners, and the landowner responsible for building apartments. Originally, the apartment's supposed to be built first during the first phase, and then in 2014, 10 years later, they sought to amend the agreement to allow the apartments to be built at any time. And a condition of that approval in connection with that was placed on Planning Commission, and the condition, basically it stated that the building permits, the issuance of those are subject to the TriPoint, who is the seller to those homes in that first phase, that they place 4 signs on this 10-acre lot where the apartments are going to go, and it must say future Southtown apartment site. Those signs with that language were never put up. So this is a significant condition of approval because as a consumer at the time, because I moved here from out of town, I was denied my right to know. So I'd like Planning Commission to put on an agenda to consider policies and procedures to follow up on conditions of approval to make sure they're followed, because the building permits were issued despite the required disclosure not happening. So number 2, I sent you an email last night because during the June 8th meeting, I found out the developer agreement expired, which was shocking to me. It expired June 30th, but June 15th, 2021, Planning Commission approved to extend the developer agreement for 3 years. Staff gave you all kinds of compelling reasons, including lost revenue, to to go ahead and recommend extension, but somehow city council, it never was brought on their agenda. So I'd like you to agendize how that, something like that can happen. And I urge you to read my email because I'm out of time. And because there's another item I wanted to place on a future agenda for you to consider. Thank you.
Okay, hold on one second, Ms. Minion. Paymon, we all received Ms. Minion's email. Are you going to be in communication with her?
Yes, so we'll be responding to that email by the end of this week.
Sound good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next is, any other public comment? Okay, that being said, we'll close public comment. Business from the floor. Consent calendar is the approval of the minutes from the May 17th, 2022 meeting. Is there anybody needs changes to the minutes?
There was one thing I wanted to. There was one part, sorry, I should have highlighted it. It was a proposed project in Green Tree Development, and it was when I had mentioned the traffic calming measures. It was just kind of the way that it was written in the minutes wasn't really what I was trying to portray. Sorry, I can't find it. I should have highlighted it. It was just the way that it was written. Hold on, I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. Never mind, I can't find it. Never mind. It was where I had mentioned adding stop signs, and it was supposed to be a positive that it would. Yeah, here we go. Multiple stop signs. Perfect. Thank you. Multiple stop signs are effective, but the route is no longer convenient. Well, that was kind of the point, was to make it not convenient. And I don't know, maybe I'm splitting hairs here. It's just the way that it was written. It doesn't seem to be kind of the way that I was trying to portray it. Does that make any difference?
So Commissioner, if you would like to make a motion to amend the minutes to accurately reflect your comment, you can do so at this time.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion with the changes that, my point under the traffic calming was it was supposed to be inconvenient.
Okay, we have a motion with the amendment. We have a second? Second, 4%. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes approved. Okay, now we are on to public hearings. Item number 7 will first be Fairmont Square. I'd like to take a minute now to actually ask any of the commissioners if they had any ex parte communications on this agenda item. Hold on, John. Come there.
Yes, I did meet with the architect on this project to sit down and discuss this project.
Thank you. I want to put on the record that I did meet with the architect as well on this project. So with that, I would like to hand the floor over to Senior Planner Albert Anal.
Good evening, Vice Chair and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight is the Fairmont Square project. And this project is a request to construct a 2,500 square foot drive-through restaurant and renovate an existing 7,900 square foot commercial building that's currently located at 521 Peabody Road. The two entitlements before the commission tonight is an environmental review for a determination of categorical exemption from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, and a conditional use permit. On the screen to your right, you'll see a map showing the approximate site location with Marshall Road to the north and Peabody Road to the southwest. A little bit about the project summary. The project itself is on a 1.42 acre site. Again, this drive-through facility, which we do not know who the tenant would be, but it's for a shell building that's 2,500 square foot. Then they're also proposing to renovate the existing 7,900 square foot building. The renovation to the site itself would yield 82 parking stalls. It would also provide 2 new trash enclosures to the site. Primary access would be provided on Marshall Road. The architect is proposing a contemporary design for these buildings. And as proposed, the project would comply with city standards as conditioned. This aerial imagery shows what the project site looks like right now. You'll see at the intersection of Peabody Road and Marshall an existing gas station and convenience store. And then the project site in red, that shows a parking lot with a small little photo booth and the existing convenience store where Fairmont Liquor is located. And directly to the south of that is the 99-cent store. This map shows how the renovation would improve the site. It would keep the existing building, but renovate the exterior. It would reorient the parking lot area. As I mentioned, 82 parking stalls. You'll see that this project includes 2 trash enclosures that are new to the site, and then also that quick serve restaurant that would be fronting along Peabody Road with the main stacking lane and landscaping along Peabody Road. This is a picture of what the proposed quick serve restaurant would look like. These are the exterior elevations. You'll notice varying elevations that pop out and with entrance designs and canopy covering and aluminum window mullions. This is what that existing building where Fairmont Wine and Spirits is located. You'll see that it has a mansard roof with a slight overhang. And this is what the applicant is proposing to do, is renovate the front facade of that building. The backside of the building would remain the same, but you can see stucco siding with varying portions of the elevations that pop out with a metal canopy and window mullions, as well as a nice architectural covering that covers over the front entrance of the main building. Staff is recommending some conditions of approval for this project for the commission tonight. Condition number 5A is a condition that focuses on exterior enhancements. This project proposes 2 buildings where the exterior elevations are primarily stucco. There's no secondary material. And in our professional experience with working on buildings like this, that secondary material, whether it be wainscoting, stone veneer, faux wood, adds a lot to the exterior enhancements of the building. And so we don't specify exactly what that material is. We're just saying that it is recommended that we add a second material to both the quick serve restaurant and to the front elevation of the main building. There's also a condition number 7 that requires that trash enclosure located on Marshall Road. You'll see it right there by that driveway entrance. There is a condition of approval that requires that to be relocated inward on the site. The applicant has been working on addressing that particular condition, and I believe he has some information for the commission tonight on how he proposes to address that specific condition. But the main purpose behind the condition is to relocate that enclosure away from the public street. There are also a couple of conditions from the Public Works Department that requires, the first one being number 35, for a driveway that's on an adjoining lot, to replace that driveway. And again, for the commission, what you'll find right here is that there is an existing driveway located on Peabody Road for the project. And then there's a secondary driveway to the south where 99-cent store is providing access. The project proposes to close this driveway. And so the Public Works condition requires the applicant to improve this driveway to comply with city standards. And the last condition that's noteworthy for tonight is that there is a requirement that Public Works has added condition number 43 that requires the applicant to underground the power lines that are located along the project frontage. Again, on the aerial imagery, you can see that there are overhead power lines located along the frontage, and the condition requires the applicant to put those underground. So with those conditions and our analysis that's identified in the staff report, staff does have a conclusion for the commission, and it's to support this project. The project does meet all the findings that are in the code for the conditional use permit and for determining that the project is exempt from CEQA. It complies with the general plan and zoning. It also complies with development standards. Both of the structures are well designed, and with the additional conditions, they'll provide additional enhancements for that center, which are much needed. And then this project's also going to improve the appearance of that shopping center greatly. So with that, staff has a recommendation for the commission tonight. It's that the commission would determine the project categorically exempt from CEQA, and that the project would be approved, the conditional use permit would be approved for the Fairmont Square, subject to the conditions of approval that have been provided for the commission in the staff report. That is it for my presentation. The applicant, the architect, and the engineer for the project are here. They do have some things to say for the commission tonight.
Yeah, and before I think we go into commissioner comments or questions real quick, I think I would like to ask the applicant to come up and speak on the project for a few minutes.
I have prepared a handout for the commission. We've been working on this I'm Rob Sesser. I'm with A2R Architecture, representing the owner that's here as the applicant. And then I'm also a resident of the city of Vacaville. It's been a long time since I've spoke to Vacaville Planning Commission, because most everything we do is in a policy plan area, so I don't get this far, and so it's a great honor to meet a lot of new faces today and some old faces. This project is in an area that is really tough, and when the owner came to me and said, you know, we want to do these things, but I don't have money to pay for it, so what can we do to enhance our revenue so we can pay for things? We knew that putting a more office building, because it was originally designed for a round table pizza, which has lots and lots of parking associated with it. And we don't need all that parking for a liquor store. And even a liquor store is overparked with the city standard parking, because at most they'll have 5-6 customers at one time. So there's a lot of extra parking, even what we've allowed for in the code that is not used. Also, if you look at the site plan, they really don't own the parking along Marshall Road and behind the store. That's actually not owned by the gentleman that owns the 99-cent store. It's owned by the parcel that's way on the far side that's not developed at this time. And they've been trying to develop all sorts of different schemes I've seen on that parcel that have not come through. I've talked to the gentleman that just bought the 99-cent store, and he'd like to do the infill project. The area between the two buildings was intended to be another building, but getting retail and office space into this neighborhood is extremely tough at this time, and even tougher now in the last 6 months. We've been 16 months since this project's been submitted to Planning Commission, and there's been a lot of changes in the last 16 months, and the whole COVID issue, and we're finally here before Planning Commission, but there's a few items in the conditions of approval that basically make this project not feasible. We're not in an area where you can command high rents. We've been marketing this QSR for over a year and not gotten one phone call, one bit of interest, one person saying, hey, what do you have? Am I interested in this? So there's been an outlay of funds by my client to get to this part, because this is what's paying for the remodeling of his building, is being able to do the QSR and get rid of that photo shop building that matches the one on Merchant and Orchard that we all know so well. So what we're asking and what I handed out is on the Exhibit B in the conditions of approval, item 5A to be removed to add additional material. It's real hard to negotiate with potential QSR owners with that criteria. They're probably going to modify this building more towards their corporate standards, so staff will have a chance to re-see it at that time. But with that condition in place and vague like it is, and not meeting the design criteria that my client set out for me to design a kind of a modern contemporary building with exposed steel elements and screening like we did, those cost a lot more than some of the other things, and the kind of entry they wanted for their liquor store, the Fairmont liquor store. We felt that keeping it like that helps us market the building, and we'd like that removed. And then items C and D should only apply to the new building. We are not lowering the parapet height in any way. In fact, in some of the areas, if you look at the drawings, we're exceeding what the existing parapet height is. So items C and D should be itemed for the new building only. Item 7, on the last page, I've included where we relocated the trash enclosure to. We really don't have room to put a trash enclosure with the easements that are across the back. And on the side of the building, there's no windows. So when somebody goes out to the trash enclosure, they're not visible from the inside. Usually there's 2 people working the store and going out somewhere where you don't have visibility of your coworker. So we're proposing a relocation and redesign. Now we do lose 1 parking spot with this redesign, but I think we're okay with that. Item 10 is the same way it should read for the new building only, because our goal is not to remodel the back and the 2 sides of the building other than the returns we put on it to help take the front facade remodel and return it down the side slightly. Okay, I'll try. Item 18, we drew these plans for a reason, and I don't know why the verbiage would supersede the plans that we're going to try and build with the plans that we drew. 19, they given us no dollar amount, but somebody did that. It's $1.79 a foot for that fee. So if that's the case, can that be written into the conditions of approval that it's $1.79 a foot for the frontage, and we're fine with that. The reciprocal access agreement, you can see our comment there. We'd like that condition removed. The existing utility stubs, actually, we've worked that out with Public Works, and I think we're okay on that. 26 is the sewer line replacement, and I think Tom Filippi's here, and he would like to speak, and I think he worked that out with Public Works. The drainages, if you look at our plans, we're draining everything through a vegetated swell, which is really good for the environment. We're actually decreasing the amount of paved surfaces in the lot with our new plan and a lot more landscaping, especially along both streets. And then, item 35, the conditions require a developer to replace the off-site Peabody Road driveway, which is not our property. It's a large expense. Somebody tried to tell me it was only $7,000, but that's not true. We're talking probably close to $30,000 by the time we're all done. And then item 43 is a city ordinance that requires that you underground utilities, but I've been given numbers upwards of over $1 million to do that for this site. And our total budget for the QSR building without the kitchen equipment would be about $1 million. So it's doubling the price of a building where we can't get as high a rents as we're looking for. And my understanding is you guys can approve it without that condition and then pass this on to city council for their approval, because they can give us a variance on that ordinance. And that's what we'd like to have happen, because there is no project with that condition. And then on the standard conditions, items 6 and 7, especially 7, it refers to the applicant, which is me, indemnifying the City of Vacaville and all its employees for forever on this project. And there's a chance that if a QSR comes in and they want to take over with their architect, I'm no longer involved. And I'm now responsible for indemnifying everybody. I've not seen this condition in all my years, but this has been a long time since I've been before this planning commission.
Yes, Vice Chair, that standard condition for the city of Vacaville, that the applicant indemnify the city on the projects. If there is a transfer in the future, that risk can be transferred by the applicant at that point.
Here on the dais.
No, we can do this.
We can?
Yeah, and just so the commission is aware, this isn't something that has just popped up. There have been meetings that staff has worked with the applicant on several times on trying to make adjustments to these. And we can speak to every single one of these, and we also have public works staff here that can help shed some light on the requirement for some of these other public works conditions. So we'll take the guidance from whatever planning commission
Okay,
would like
I'm
to
going to
do.
open it up to commissioner questions here in a minute, but one quick question that I do have is if this project is approved as stated by staff and goes to city council, can the applicant bring these all forward to city council at that time?
So the decision maker for this project is the planning commission. Should whatever the decision the planning commission make tonight, that decision could also be appealed to city council, and then city council can make a decision on the appeal component of it.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open it up to commissioner questions or comments for staff or the applicant. Anybody?
I know you asked my question, actually.
Okay, I do have questions. Rob, let's go to you. Is the owner using any public funds or being loaned any city funds for the improvements of the building?
No.
No? Okay. Albert, question for staff. If the project is approved tonight and the conditions that are put on the main building that's going to be restored or revamped, will the drive-through come back to us for architectural design or approval?
No, it would not. The entirety of the commission's action tonight is for the conditional use permit for the drive-through as well as the renovation. So whatever the decision makes tonight, the planning commission makes tonight is the decision for this project. Within their power tonight, the planning commission has the ability to approve the project with modifications. That means also modifying conditions of approval or denying the project.
So is it safe to say in the future when this project gets approved and the facade and the steel and everything for the structure or for the architectural design is approved, would the drive-through need to mirror that? Or is there flexibility there so the applicant has the opportunity to deal with drive-through franchise chains that are now nationally known that have their own requirements for what their buildings look like? I just want to make sure there's flexibility when that.
Yeah, yes, there is flexibility that is provided to developers when projects come in. It's called a modification to that original entitlement. Some changes that occur to original projects are of a nature that are substantial, that would require changes to go back to the original decision maker. In this case, it would be the planning commission. In other cases, some changes might be minor as determined by the director of community development, and those would be handled in-house by the director and staff administratively.
Okay, can we look at and have you address the change to item number 7? The applicants asked that the trash enclosure and parking area to the existing building shall be located per the attached drawing.
Yes, this was an item that was identified as a condition of approval because at the time the planning commission staff report was generated and published for review, we did not have this drawing. This was a drawing that came to us yesterday. And so the condition of approval requires compliance with the code. That's the whole point of conditions, is that you've got a project, it meets certain city standards, but it needs to comply with other standards. And so you have conditions that say, this is how you're going to change it to comply. One of those was the trash enclosure. So with this drawing, changed based off of the condition, it would meet that requirement of making sure that it's moved away from the public street.
Do you feel that's a safe place for the employees?
I think we drew a bunch of options that I ran by the owner, and when I met with you, obviously, that's the one thing we talked about. And I think we agreed that this would be the safest place and the least obtrusive.
Okay. Thank you. Albert, item number 10, change to read this only applies to the new building.
Again, the whole purpose behind conditions are so that way we can bring the project to compliance with standards. And when you have changes or modifications to original projects, it opens it up to bringing it into compliance with the current code. Sometimes, from time to time, there are changes to roof-mounted equipment. What the code says is that that roof-mounted equipment cannot be visible from the public street. Doesn't say anything about the parking lot area. So this particular condition applies to both the quick serve restaurant, but also to that existing building. Yes, behind the building, there is no parapet, but also behind the building is a vacant lot. It's not a public street. So the purpose of the condition, staff believes, can be fulfilled with the proposed improvements to the facade of the building as it's already shown.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Sesser, you have the owner here with you. Is this drive-through restaurant basically a trade-off for the improvements to the existing building, the Fairmont Liquor Store?
It's what we came up with to fund the whole project. One of the aspects that if you look at our lighting plan, we are putting new pole lights on the Marshall side, a lot of them. That's a very dark area under those trees. So this plan those are not inexpensive by any means. They're over $10,000 a pole, plus the trenching to get out to them. So we are relighting the whole site per current city standards. We actually have two pole lights on that side to just get some light underneath those trees. Even as today, there was an abandoned vehicle behind the building, which is not my client's property, so it's not much he can do about it. There was also a series of camps behind this building and under these trees that, again, a lot of that area is not my client's property, so there's not much he can do about it. He is selling a product that has some, stigma to it. And he's trying to keep a very clean and a very safe environment and not have police calls out. So if there's a vagrant thing behind his site and a police call gets there, it's his address that gets written down, which means then it affects his liquor license, but it's not his property that's being called on. And so there's a lot of reasons why, the two gentlemen that are sitting here, father and son, longtime Vacaville residents are trying to do this project to just really help this neighborhood. I mean, this neighborhood does not warrant the rents like, places along the freeway get in this town. And so I think they're trying really hard to do something very good for the community that they have their business in.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner Rudin, you have a question?
Yeah, if you wanted to finish yours, I just wanted to get in the queue. If you wanted to. I'm good. You're good, okay. So mine are kind of towards you as well as city. With the quick serve restaurant, do you guys have anybody in mind? Have you been reaching out to anybody?
Fairfield, Ron Waslin, who's a resident of Vacaville, he's been actively trying to find a quick serve restaurant.
Okay.
The owners actually came to me with some frustration, and I told them, maybe, once we get planning approval, and so they know what the conditions are and they know what the price tag could be. And that's why we're trying to not do the undergrounding of the power lines, because that basically just removes everybody from discussion.
Right. Well, because the reason I'm asking is with the extra, the parts that you would like to have removed, because if it is like a national one and they all have their own individual designs, they're kind of cookie cutter, would it make sense for you guys to build it and then have, how much change would need to be done if it was, I don't know if I'm allowed to say a name of a restaurant, but, somewhere that has a very distinct look.
We don't know.
Okay.
We're hoping somebody comes around and wants to invest in this site and likes the layout, likes the location. The the gas station on the corner was a major remodel about 15 years ago, I think. And they didn't underground the power lines when they did that. That was a total rebuild with an added car wash and a whole new gas line queue. And so, you know, our goal is to kind of get something going in the neighborhood. The 99-cent store owner has told me he would like to do something too, to build in that infill building and do something to get more business at that location.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people that are part of that neighborhood that have their eyes on this project.
So there is interest. Okay, because the other thing was it would be terrible to build something, have it sit for a while.
Yeah, there won't be any building or remodeling, and we asked that we have 2 years to try and market this.
Okay.
And so there's 2 years. And I guess the city changed which is great. Instead of 1 year with a year renewal, they just did automatic 2-year approval. And hopefully something that with the economy going the way it is, and I don't want to get into that discussion.
Yeah.
We're hoping that something comes through when we have a set of conditions of approval we can include in our marketing material.
Okay, then my next question would be more towards the city with item 43, the removal of the underground pole. So would they be responsible just only putting that section in front of their property underground?
That's correct, but also I'd like to defer for our Public Works employee who is here that can speak more eloquently on that particular condition, why it's there, the whole purpose behind it, where it comes from.
Okay,
So when the commission's ready, we do have an employee
okay,
here.
okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Hold on one second, Commissioner Wilker.
Just to clarify, I think this has come up a couple times regarding the future building and what it could look like. So condition number 2, I think states if plans come in that are different than what got approved, there's 2 options, and I think Albert hit on this briefly, which is we could either determine it to be substantial compliance, which is comes down to if it's a design that staff supports, or if it's something that is vastly different than what the Planning Commission looked at, it would require a separate planning application. So typically, not only with Mr. Sesser, but any of the projects where it's a building that could have a future tenant, we've found ways to work those out, or sometimes the corporate architecture is well enough to meet what the Planning Commission's approved. So I think we're confident with our condition number 2 that design of the building is going to be something that meets our design criteria.
Commissioner Wilkerson.
Did you want to go ahead?
Sorry, just one more point of clarification. There was some discussion, I'm going back to condition number 10 about the roof-mounted equipment. The point of clarification I wanted to add is it does say on the new building, it says in the very beginning, the roof-mounted equipment on the new building shall not exceed the height of any parapet. So just to make sure that's clear for the commission.
I'd like to say overall, I like the project. I like seeing the proposed updating of the area. I have tons of feelings that go back to when I was 7 years old of going to that round table with my dad after he would play at Marshall and, softball and stuff. And so it's nice to see a focus, especially in this little pocket area of building. Of course, I'm in favor of the changes to the trash enclosure. I have strong feelings about someone walking that far late at night to empty out the trash and not being able to see your coworker, and you just never know what could happen. And so being able to have something a lot closer to where someone's leaving the building could be back within 30 seconds, 45 seconds, as opposed to minute and a half, 2 minutes. I mean, time is precious. And we're talking about someone who's going to be working at potentially this type of restaurant, could be a little younger, just dependently. And so I worry about safety for the employees. And so I like the move. But overall, I like revitalization of the area. And it's nice to hear that the neighbor next door is interested in bringing that up as well. So overall, I think I'm good with this project and the updated conditions.
Two questions. Item 43, the preliminary estimate by PG&E would cost over $1 million. Is that a verbal quote, a written quote, or where did you get that number from?
It was just talking to service out of Inland, undergrounding. 1,200 kV line. If we have to go back to the poles on the other side of Marshall Street, it even gets more. The poles are very far apart there. There's only one pole in the middle of our lot that's affected. So if we have to add two poles, one at the gas station property line and one at the, which would be in the sight distance of the exit driveway. So we probably have to go another new pole way beyond that and underline from that point from the exit driveway. So it increases the amount of frontage, and you're also undergrounding not just the PG&E, you're undergrounding the cable TV, the phone lines, and all that's involved in the engineering of it. It's probably in that price range by the time you're all said and done. And right now, it's 2 years to get anything through PG&E with the new system. So once we have a client that says, I want to rent the QSR, and you start the design work, they're 2 years away before they could start building where they're going to get PG&E service and have engineering done and make sure everything's going to work and price out. So it's a very cumbersome condition. And one of the things I wanted to say is that the only reason I've never opposed staff like this before on a condition, and so I kind of apologize to dump that on your lap, but you guys are residents of Vacaville like me, and I'm asking you to you're here because you're appointed by city council, and city council is elected by the citizens, and it's up to determine the direction staff takes. And I think if we're trying to develop these types of communities, some of the condition standards that occur in other places, more affluent places in Vacaville, really you can't put them in other neighborhoods, and something that's been there for years and years and years, and all of a sudden say let's impose some change when people are trying to improve their neighborhood. And I think this is a good example on an unruly condition that shouldn't be opposed on this neighborhood.
I do have one more question, if I may, Vice Chair.
Go ahead.
So the property, or I would say the church behind what the request is, Christian Body Life Fellowship. Do you have any discussion, which is a predominantly African-American church? Do you have any discussions with their pastor or their people at all?
I worked with their pastor years ago to convert the Cinema 8 into their church. I did not talk to them at this point. And we do have the property, different property owner between us and the church, so our property does not really back up. I know they have a lot of problems, but I did not talk to them directly.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment. I just want to make a quick comment. We're going to see a lot of this with infill projects and the utilities. I really want to see this project move forward. I think the shopping center needs it. Looking forward to seeing what you guys can do. I think there's an opportunity on the vacant lot if you get done what you need to do. The existing shopping center over there on Marshall needs a facelift too, so hopefully this is some synergy. I'm comfortable with most of the conditions. I'm wanting to see 43 be removed if that was could be done, and it would actually fall under the jurisdiction of the council. Then at that point to see if they want to adhere to having the utilities above ground or underground at that time. So with that, I'd like to open up the public comment.
I have a general question. I had, me and some of my neighbors, we appealed the McDonald's project that's located on Nut Tree Boulevard in Alamo. And at that time, before the appeal hearing, I made a public records request for traffic studies at various drive-throughs. So I selected the other McDonald's in the city. I selected In-N-Out Burger, and then Burger King on Peabody. So the consistent response that I received with regard to the traffic studies is they weren't performed. And I was wondering, under what circumstance, if at all, would the city require a traffic study with regard to the drive-through restaurants? That general question, and I don't know if one is needed here. Number two, I do appreciate the architecture that's being proposed for this site. I think Peabody in general has really good traffic. If I was a business person, I would love to see that entire thoroughfare remodeled. The architecture of this, I was trying to guess what drive-through would fit in, and it kind of reminds me of a smash burger. So, which I happen to like, but that has nothing to do with anything. But if you go to Roseville and you drive along Blue Oaks Boulevard, they've done a really good job in terms of the architecture of some of those shopping centers. So I encourage the developers who are interested in developing Peabody Road that they take a drive over to Roseville and look at Blue Oaks Boulevard. And I hope that we can have some of that here in Vacaville. Thank you.
Are there any additional public comments? Not seeing anybody. We'll close public comments. Are there any additional comments or questions from the commission before we take a vote or have a motion?
Vice Chair,
Yes.
before the commission moves towards a motion, I just want to caution the commission on some procedural issues that could arise if there is an inclination to accept the applicant's exceptions to the conditions this evening. Most importantly is condition 43. Because that is undergrounding of the utilities, public utilities, on a public street, the city council is the decision maker on that, not the commission. The commission may make a recommendation to the council regarding exception. But in addition to that limitation, one of the other limitations in the city code is that if such an exception is going to be made, it needs to be publicly noticed, and we have not done that tonight. So that exception was not in the original, that request for that exception was not included in the agenda packet that went out to the public tonight.
So it would be more of a recommendation from the commission.
Well, I think
Then
the
a removal.
commission has some options. Additionally, the nature and extent of the other requests for exceptions that have been made from a legal perspective, you know, I do think best practice would be to make sure that those requested exceptions are noticed to the public so they have an opportunity to comment. So I think you have some options this evening. At least the one exception would have to go to city council. It's not within the commission's purview to make that exception. And then the others, I think, are within the commission's purview. However, the commission may wish to continue this item, let it be renoticed with those exceptions. It can be brought back to the commission next month with those noticed to the public and addressed fully by staff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, do we have, sorry, Commissioner Rudin, comments or question?
I just have a question. If we get this renoticed and this comes back next month, would that include item 43?
Item 43, according to the city's municipal code, only the city council can grant that exception, but the commission may consider it, and part of your action would be to make a recommendation to the city council to grant that exception.
Okay, so we could say if you know, with the exceptions, we renotice, they come back next month, we can approve everything and that, only that one part goes, so that way it doesn't completely stall, it would just be that one part goes back to city, or would the whole project go back to city?
I think in considering the exception, they would probably have the whole project in front of them with the understanding that it was within your authority to approve it all, and that their authority is related to that exception for the undergrounding of utilities on a public street.
Okay.
Commissioner Wilkerson.
Just time frame clarification for me. We put it on for next month. Everyone gets notice, gets time. Does this then go to city council in a timely manner, or would it apply to them in the next meeting or so? I just feel it leaves me a couple of questions in my head.
So I don't manage a city council agenda, but I understand that it's the staff and city manager's objective that as soon as things move through planning commission, we try to get them onto the city council agenda at the most quickest meeting that we can, so that projects are able to move forward in a fair and quick manner.
Commissioner Labonte.
Is there a precedent for making exemptions for item 43? Has that ever been done?
I'm sorry, I would have to defer to Public Works on that.
Hello, Chris Joya with Public Works. So the question was, is there a precedent to getting an exception? I'm not familiar with any exceptions. I've only been with the city about 5 years, so I don't know of any exceptions that we've granted with regards to undergrounding. I know it's a typical condition of approval that we put on every project, you know, that because it is city code, it's our job to enforce that city code. So we don't have any discretion on whether one project should underground or not. So, sorry, I can't answer beyond that.
The applicant. Mr. Felipe, would you like to come address that question, please?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Tom Filippi, Filippi Engineering. As many of you know, I've had my office down the street for about 31 years. There's a power pole behind that, behind my property. When we built it, it was not undergrounded under a similar scenario. So yes, there is precedent, and that pole is still there.
Commission, any questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
Okay, I'm going to try to stumble through this motion. I would like that these exceptions are considered. So I would like to make a motion to bring this back so this can have proper public notice so they can be considered. Yeah, that's right when I said I was going to stumble through this one.
Clarifying question for the commission. There is a full list of items that we've been discussing tonight. Is the commission interested in changing all of these conditions, or is the commission interested in just changing condition number 43?
I think 5 that has to do with the quick serve restaurant should be considered. Oh, and the trash enclosure one too. Okay, now I'm kind of panicked. Well, not panicking, but how do I word this correctly?
Hold on 1 second. Or Vargas?
Yeah, I'm assuming we can make commentary. I would agree with a continuance, not specifically for 5, the trash, but for 43 and the proper noticing. I'm just a little skeptical. It's a little worried, concerned that there's a proper public noticing. It seems as if it could be potentially a 2-month turnaround, which is worth the wait. So I think what Commissioner Rubin is trying to do is, the motion is to continue the matter to allow for that public noticing. I think is what you're getting at.
Okay, so right now, I would like continuance and just, we ask for continuance and call out the items we need to be addressed.
Yes, I think that's an appropriate motion if that's what the commission wishes to do.
Let it be specific.
Vice Chair, I think we already have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Vargas. And you didn't,
Commissioner Vargas, can you state your motion, please?
Sure. I motion that we continue the matter to the next planning commission meeting to allow for appropriate public notice, in particular for item 43.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Labonte. Madam Secretary, can we have roll call vote?
Commissioner Vargas? Commissioner Labonte?
Yes.
Commissioner Rudine?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkerson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Fortney?
Yes.
well, no, it's okay.
So can we have clarification? Can you read the motion back, please, Madam Secretary?
The motion is to continue this item to the next planning commission meeting for proper noticing of item number 43.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we are on to public hearing B, the Hampton Inn. I would also like to ask any commissioners now if now would be the opportunity to disclose any ex parte communications. Commissioner Wilkerson?
I met with the applicant regarding this project.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would like to disclose that I did meet with the applicant on this item, and I also did speak with Melissa Reeves from Visit Vacaville, and I'm going to actually ask her after staff's comments or presentation to give us a few words about occupancy rates. Commissioner Wilkerson?
I also did meet with Melissa Reeves from Visit Vacaville.
Thank you. Okay, Hampton Inn. Albert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Item before you tonight, the Hampton Inn and Suites. This is a request to construct a 108-room, 5-story hotel on a vacant 2.26 acre site that's located at 1000 Mason Street. Two entitlements before the commission tonight is an environmental review for a mitigated negative declaration and a planned development. On the screen to your right, you'll see the project site in red, Mason Street to the north with I-80 and the off-ramp to the south and west. Existing commercial street across the street. A little bit about the project. The site is 2.26 acres, 108 rooms, again, 5 stories, 69 feet tall. This project would include a fitness center with meeting rooms. The site would yield 122 parking stalls. The application also includes a request to demolish and construct a new 70-foot tall freeway sign. Project notably includes a public art mural along Mason Street. The design is a contemporary one, and primary access will be provided off of Mason Street. There are exceptions included with this proposal. Here's a project that shows the area in red. You'll see Hampton Inn, the proposed 5-story building nestled in the center of the site with a portico towards the front of the building, closer to Mason Street. Access provided one driveway along Mason Street. There is an existing driveway that would also provide access to this site. That's next to the gas station. You'll see the gas station located to the left with an existing convenience store and canopy, and then Pace Solano also to the west. Perimeter landscaping is also included along Interstate 80, as well as interior of the site and along Mason Street. This rendering is provided by the applicant that shows what the elevation will look like along Mason Street. As you can see, varying elevations, pop-outs with a variety of materials, faux wood tile with brick siding, a variety of colors. Also along the back, you'll see the renderings showing those variety of materials and colors too. A little bit of information about the public art mural. The downtown specific plan that was recently adopted this year allows for a public art mural. This project site's within that specific plan. Public art murals are to be designed by local artists, and they're intended to reflect Vacaville's history and people. For this particular project, there's no requirement in the downtown specific plan or streetscapes design to provide a mural at the site. However, the applicant is proposing to do that for this project. And what they'll be doing is seeking local artists for design, whether it be local or provided by the high schools within the community. And again, what the applicant's proposing to do is reflect Vacaville's rich history and people. This design, although a graphic is provided to you as an example of what that might look like, the final design of this would be subject to the Director of Community Development. Again, this project does include exceptions to development standards, which are identified and described in detail in the staff report. The first of the exceptions is an increase of the floor area ratio. Code requires 0.3, and the applicant is requesting 0.67 for this project. The applicant's also requesting an increase to the building height from 40 feet to 69 feet. They're also requesting a landscape setback decrease from 12 feet to 7 feet for a small portion along Interstate 80, interior of the site. They're also requesting an increase to the sign height for the freeway sign that they're proposing to demolish. The existing sign is 60 feet tall, and the new sign that would be relocated would be 70 feet tall. There are some offsetting benefits that are again also described in the staff report in great detail for each of these measures. But it boils down to this, is that the floor area ratio wouldn't result in any additional impacts that aren't already considered as part of other more intense uses that could be at the site, such as retail or restaurants. That the hotel and the additional rooms would result in tax benefit to the community through transit occupancy taxes. There's also be a benefit to the biotechnology strategy by providing additional rooms for those that are looking to visit Vacaville and invest in the community. And then this, smaller setback that's located along Interstate 80, the request to reduce it from 12 feet to 7 feet, it's not visible. It's located along the freeway to the back of the building. The developer is meeting the setback standards for the project for those areas that are visible, like along Mason Street and interior on the site adjoining Pace Solano. As I mentioned before, this project does require CEQA evaluation, and our analysis for this project identified that there would be environmental impacts, but those environmental impacts could be mitigated to a less than significant level. And so in that initial study evaluation, we made that determination. So mitigated negative declaration was prepared. And there were certain components of that analysis identified where those mitigation measures were needed. It was in air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, hazardous materials, hydrology, noise, and tribal cultural resources. So all of that was bundled up in one nice package that was, I think, just shy of 1,000 pages and circulated for public review. And during that 30-day review period, we received one comment letter from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife that were standard comments for consideration about whether or not the site would have a potential use for foraging habitat for avian species. Upon further examination, we found that the environmental report that we had prepared already accounted for those, so we took it as standard comments. So in conclusion, that's identified in the staff report and the findings for this project. Staff supports this project. It does meet the findings for adopting a mitigated negative declaration and also for approving a plan development with the exceptions. Complies with the general plan and zoning. Complies with development standards, as noted with those exceptions that are granted by the plan development. It's a very well-designed structure. And it's also located near downtown and Interstate 80, which allows for ease of access for freeway travelers and also for people who are looking to visit our downtown area in a very walkable manner. So with that, staff has a recommendation for the Planning Commission, and that the Planning Commission would consider adopting the mitigated negative declaration and approve the plan development for the Hampton Inn and Suites, subject to those conditions approval that were included in the staff report. That's it for my presentation.
Thank you, Albert. Any questions from the commission of staff? Commissioner Rudin?
I wanted to say that, thank you for the report. I think this is a perfect spot for this hotel, and I fully support this. I'm just curious, what is Vacaville's TOT, and were there any projections on annual revenue for TOT with this?
For that question, we have Melissa Reeves, who's here to answer that.
So I had asked Melissa Reeves from Visit Vacaville. She'll be able to answer your question as well on the TOT and what a hotel like this might generate future revenue to the city of Vacaville. But I also want to ask you while we have you at the podium about occupancy rates, where we were pre-pandemic, what we look at, kind of what we look like now, and what do we see in the future?
Absolutely. So good evening, Commissioners. Melissa Reeves, President and CEO of Visit Vacaville. Thank you for asking me to be here this evening. So most definitely COVID has impacted our occupancy rates. There's no doubt we have not reached pre-COVID levels in our hotels yet. However, I will tell you that we are quickly bouncing back. We do anticipate this summer to be very close to pre-pandemic levels. Gas prices right now are clearly a big question mark as to what that's going to do to our travelers. We are very much still seeing, though, what we call revenge travel. Revenge travel is all of us were cooped up for 2 years, and to heck with gas prices, we're going on vacation anyway. So we are definitely seeing our hotel rates and our hotel occupancy back, coming back very, very quickly. Our rates are actually back to pre-pandemic levels. So, you know, I think one thing people don't anticipate in our community is that our rates run about $250 a night for most of our select service hotels. And we have historically very much struggled with having enough rooms in our community. We have an exorbitant amount of military that stays in our hotels actually Monday through Sunday all week. And then Don Burris has done such an amazing job bringing in biotech that we are full with biotech and other corporate Monday through Thursday. Our weekends are typically full with leisure travelers. And again, pre-pandemic, we really struggled, especially in the summer months, with even having enough rooms to accommodate everybody that wanted to stay in our community. So while I realize our hotels are not in a place right now where they want to see additional hotel properties approved, by the time this hotel were to open, we fully anticipate being in a completely different position than we are today and absolutely needing the additional rooms in our community. As for the TOT, I can't give you specifically because I don't know what the rates will look like that this hotel will charge, but I will tell you a similar type 91-room hotel generated about $216,000 in transient occupancy tax. That is just the 8% TOT tax. There's also a 2% excise tax on top of that, and then a 3% assessment that goes to my organization. The $216,000 again was generated by a 91-room hotel in 2001 when rates were lower, occupancy rates were lower. So we anticipate this hotel probably being more in like the $280,000 range. And remember, with transient occupancy tax, it is the only tax that our city collects that we don't have to share with any other entity. It's all the cities, goes into the general fund, helps fund our public services that all of our residents, love to enjoy in our community.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? Great, thank you.
I think we're good. Albert, I do have one quick question for you. Can you go back to the aerial view of the project? Can you tell me and describe Pace Solano? Can you tell me about our neighbors, Pace Solano?
They are neighbors of the project adjoining the site. The applicant has worked with them on the acquisition of part of the property to accommodate part of the parking and landscaping for the site. and they have obtained an agreement working with them on being able to provide that for them. Applicants also here that they can talk a little bit about that relationship that they've had with Pace Solano along the way.
Thank you. Mr. Sesser, can you answer that question? Can you also answer the question, I like economic development, I love infill, I like creating jobs. With these types of projects, what are we looking for, construction jobs, what are we looking at permanent, long-term jobs? And can you tell us a little bit what happens at Pace Solano and the agreement you have, or are working on an agreement with Pace Solano?
Well, Rob Susser again, Vacaville resident, A2R Architecture here in town, local Vacaville business. We originally were approached with trying to put a hotel on this site, and we met with Payman so long ago now, and he was very supportive right from the start. I also worked with Pace Solano in doing their tenant improvements into their building, and so I knew the staff down there very well. And so we got together with them, and the part of the property that we're buying is undeveloped right now. It wasn't built when Navy Federal Credit Union, I think it was Navy Federal Credit Union, moved into that site. This is a very difficult site. It has one access off the one road. There's, you got to do a whole series of U-turns to go anywhere. And a hotel is perfect for this site because it's a destination site. Retail and office will just not survive, as Navy Federal Credit Union found out. Pace Solano is a destination site, and the gas station is, I think, on multiple flags. They haven't been able to operate their drive-through because they just don't get enough customers. So we're hoping this really helps this site, having a hotel on this site. It took quite a while to get to this point because there's a lot of complexity. The reason we asked for the extension on this one was working out where exactly the little piece of wetland was found in the report, and it's right along the Caltrans easement, and we think it's totally within our landscape area, so we're gonna be able to preserve it and work with it without losing any parking, and I think we're all set on that.
Can you tell us about Pace Solano? and your
Pace
agreement?
Solano was real excited about site. They asked us not to access their drive area behind their building. Our original plan was looping that in so that they would have full access to our site with access agreement. And they asked us not to do that because they play basketball in their back parking lot because they have more parking than they need. And so we closed that off and not allowing, so people don't drive through there, so it preserves their basketball area. And then they were real excited about selling the land that they didn't use. And also the owner has worked with them in setting up when we get operational. I don't know the exact numbers, but usually 20 to 30 employees associated with 3 shifts, 24-hour. There's not a convention center here. There's some large meeting rooms going in, hence the little bit of extra parking, then 1 parking spot per room. But there'll be a full-service laundry facility. There'll be a kitchen facility for heating food, a little bar area, and so they've already in works with talking with Pace Solano and hiring some of their people in their program that can hold down a job and hire those people.
Yeah, so give us a real brief description what happens at Pace Solano for some of the commissioners that might not know, or anybody that's listening to the meeting that doesn't know or isn't familiar with Pace.
Pace Solano is a long-time service company. They have schools, I call them schools, in a lot of different areas, and they're all through the county. And this is one of their ones where they take people with some developmental skills that don't have some, and help train them to do chores and to blend into society and to be part of the community. I don't know a better way to describe it, but
And some of these individuals be working at the hotel?
Some of the individuals with Pace Solano can't hold a job, but some can, and they do very well. And I think the hotel offers some of those kind of jobs that clients of Pace Solano can do very well.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Sesser. Any questions for the applicant?
I'd like to state that, it's been a long haul on this project. I think we've got all the issues worked out. I do still have a problem with the indemnification clauses that are now written into the conditions of approval. I'm sure it doesn't apply if any city employee or city client acted in malice, that would probably throw the whole thing out. So it's probably something we can just work at together, but I'm excited to see this project built on this site because I think it's something that this site needs, and it's an infill, and it's probably the only thing that could probably economically be feasible on this site with our downturn in retail and business and office space.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sesser. With that, I'd like to open up for public comment. Seeing none, we will close the public comment. Any additional comments or questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Wilkerson?
Yes, when this came in our packet, I will admit to everyone that I was pretty short-sighted on it. I did not see why this would be feasible, the location, what was previously on the property years ago. I've lived in Vacaville since 1980, so I mean, just what previously was on that site. But after, talking with Mr. Sesser and talking to Melissa, it opened my eyes. We need this in Vacaville. This is a lovely town. I didn't realize how many people would just continue to love to come here. And I get it, with our proximity to Napa and other things and conventions that they could have here at this hotel. To me, it makes sense. And so, looking at it the short lens of, hey, does this work? This may not. We have to think long-term in terms of this location and, the continued growth of our town. So I would be in support of the project.
Thank you. Commissioner Vargas?
Yeah, I'm actually excited about this project. I agree. I think this is probably the only thing that we can build there, given the access. But more so tonight, Mr. Assessor, in what potentially can be done for Pace Solano. Having been a social worker in my prior life, and knowing the good things that Pace Solano does for people with developmental delays in trying to live the most least restrictive environment and lifestyle. I can't hold you to giving them jobs, I understand that, but even if you give them a fair shake, I think that's great. And so, and also for the existing gas station, I believe it was a few credit unions that were in that lot previous that did not make it. But the gas station there and the drive-through does not look like it's used very often. I'm hoping that will actually help that business as well thrive again. So I'm in full support of this project.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Rudin?
Okay. I make a motion to approve, to adopt the mitigated negative declaration and approve the plan development for the Hampton Inn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Labonte. Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Vargas? Yes. Commissioner Labonte?
Yes.
Commissioner Rudin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkerson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Fortney?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. We are now on to item number 8, status reports on development of major projects. Will that be Albert? Or?
So I'll speak very briefly to the building division. I don't have any specific numbers for you tonight, but obviously with a lot of development that I'm sure you've all seen on east side of Leisure Town, warehouse project, there's a lot of development occurring and a lot of permits that are coming with that. So our staff is definitely very busy, both reviewing the permits and also inspecting them. So that's a quick update on building. Albert will present current planning, and then Tyra Hayes will present advanced planning.
Thank you. Albert?
It was a quiet May month for current planning. In District 1, we received, the Director of Community Development approved a parcel map for Templo La Hermosa, which is a existing church that's at 721 Wesley Avenue. They subdivided their larger property and created 2 parcels, one for their property, which is 1.53 acres, and then a smaller one that could potentially be used for residential of 0.4 acres along that street. We also received a request that the commission may have received notification on for Goffco. Vacaville, that is a convenience store that's located off of 2000 Nut Tree Road, and the request is for them to sell alcohol at their current convenience store. And so the city received that a determination of whether or not public convenience or public need would be served by the addition of that type 20 license, which is for beer and wine. So we're currently under review of that project. Nothing notable happened for new projects in Districts 3 through 5. In District 6, though, we received new house plans for Foxborough Knoll. It's that last portion of development that you'll see out there now grading. This proposal is it's a planned development, and it's from Pulte Homes. And what they're looking at doing is constructing 4 house plans with 3 elevations each. So there are 58 lots that would be out there with these plans, and those houses range from 2,800 square feet to 4,000 square feet. So we're currently in the throes of working with them on reviewing the architectural elevations and development plans for that project. That is a staff level review project, subject to Director of Community Development review and approval. There was also a smaller permit for administrative clearance to reduce a rear yard setback from 20 feet to 15 feet. Just to note that we've still got smaller projects where people are looking to add patio covers or swimming pools in their backyard. Some of the notable plan checks that we reviewed involve a lot of house plans. These home builders are still looking at constructing new homes. And so you're going to be seeing a lot of construction over at the Seasons at Vanamino and Villages at Vanamino, which is both Richmond American and Meritage homes out there. You'll also see over by Roberts Ranch, Wild Hawk and Carmelo homes. Wild Hawk and Taylor Morrison are building their subdivisions out there. So you'll see a lot of construction moving along in those subdivisions too. So that's the activity that we've been receiving during the month of May. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Then advanced planning, Tyra Hayes.
Good evening, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. It definitely was not a slow month for the Advanced Planning Division. We are currently working on several large projects that will come before you at various times this year and maybe into next year. One of the biggest projects we're currently working on is the preparation of our housing element, safety element, and environmental justice elements. We are tentatively scheduled to receive the public draft of the housing element in mid to late July. And at that point in time, we will begin the 40-day public review period. And along with our consultant team, PlaceWorks, staff will be coming back to the Planning Commission and then to the Council to do a informational presentation to both governing bodies. One thing I'd like to note, some of you may have received an invitation. We will be holding a virtual workshop on June 30th at 11:30 in the morning. This workshop is to discuss how we can create healthy communities for the city of Vacaville. This information will be used to help the preparation of our environmental justice policies. Another very large project we are currently working on is the first step in the urban reserve conversion evaluation process. Some of you may not be aware, but when we adopted our general plan in 2015, we did create large pockets of land designated for urban reserve in the East Elizabethtown growth area. And we have a very small pocket of urban reserve also designated within our northeast sector. We do have a urban reserve ordinance within our municipal code that does require us to consider the conversion of urban reserve lands concurrently with our municipal service review, which is done every 5 years. The last time we did this municipal service review was 2017. So this is the year we are beginning the preparation of the municipal service review, which automatically triggers the need for us to consider and start the process for the urban reserve conversion evaluation process. We will be bringing the first step of this process to the City Council next week on June 28th to share our findings with them. The findings are simply the inventory of developable lands and our land needs in order to maintain a 20-year supply of residential lands as dictated by our urban reserve ordinance. From there, the City Council can decide whether or not they want to proceed to step 2. Step 2 is the consideration as to whether or not they would like us to convert or consider conversion of any of the urban reserve lands in order to meet the city's needs as it pertains to housing. Another project that we are continuing to implement is our downtown specific plan. You have heard a little bit about that tonight as we've reviewed the latest hotel proposal. The downtown specific plan was adopted in February of this year. One of the implementation tasks is the preparation of a cultural resources sensitivity analysis along Ulatis Creek. As you may be aware, we do have cultural resources along this creek, and this has been identified with past construction projects. What the city is doing is we are contracting with Environmental Science Associates, or ESA for short. This is the consultant group that helped us prepare our downtown specific plan. And as part of the evaluation, they're going to be working with our local Indian tribe, the Yoka Dehe Wutan tribe, to ensure that we have appropriate and acceptable protocols on how to deal with any cultural remains should we encounter them with either private or public development along the creek within the downtown area. Once we begin this work, this process is anticipated to take roughly 3 months to complete. So that concludes the update for advanced planning. I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? I have one quick question for you. We talked about the property in the urban reserve, and council will be looking at that study. Is it just to identify residential or commercial and industrial as well?
We are only looking at residential. The main reason being that the vast majority of urban reserve is located east of Leisure Road, and our general plan designation, or I'm sorry, our general plan identifies this area as being primarily for residential development.
Okay, director's report. You're on the seat.
You don't have to all look over here. So just briefly, in terms of city council actions related to planning items, last week, as a second reading, the council considered the zoning map amendments. So with that, we are looking at July 14th as a date that the new code is valid and ready to go. We're also along that line working with Open Counter to make sure that the new code is active, and any maps that have been updated are also included in that. In terms of upcoming items, we have Corby Battery Storage and North Village AP2. North Village AP2 is an informational item for the council. And then Corby Battery Storage is a merit hearing to rezone a portion of our lands, sort of north part of Vacaville. So for Corby Battery Storage, we're looking at, I believe, July 26th, and for North Village, July 19th. Tentative items that we're looking at for Planning Commission, I think you're all familiar with it. North Village AP2 is going to be one of them. Green Tree is also coming up. CEQA training that Director Morris is going to be taking on. The Urban Reserve that Tyra mentioned is coming back to the commission as well. And also sometime in the next several months, the Southtown Apartments that we noticed or had a neighbor meeting on a couple weeks ago. In terms of announcements, staffing wise, we have interviews this week and next week for chief building official and for hopefully an associate or assistant planner that could help with the current planning activities. And then upcoming meetings, Tyra mentioned one of them, the community health workshop on June 30th. We're also having and that's virtual, we're also having another virtual meeting for the Brown Street Park project on Brown Street. That's on June 29th at 6 p.m. So notices have gone out for both of those. I think we're probably going to be providing some more noticing on site within the neighborhood on the Brown Street project. So those are the two that are coming up, and that's all I have.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you, Acting Director. Are there any commissioner comments before we close? Commissioner Wilkerson.
First want to, didn't get to do it last time, just quickly, happy graduation to all the graduates in the city of Vacaville. And quickly just want to take a moment, I'll probably do this often, but thank you, staff. People don't realize how much time you guys put into projects and how many times you work after, whenever your work day was supposed to be over, and on the weekends. And so one of the things that is near and dear to my heart is my mother worked for the school district and student superintendent is making sure I never ask you to do anything after hour on the weekends. Your family time to me is the most important. And, you know, anything that the 7 of us would ask, I believe could wait till the next day. Because, unless the city's burning. But it's not a funny joke, it's pretty serious. It's just really important to me that you guys also have that work-life balance. And I just want to put it on record how much we appreciate, I definitely do, the time you put in. Because as a child growing up, I saw a lot of times when, oh, I got to go do this project, or we got to go do this. And I got plenty of hugs, I'm good. But it's just, I just want to make sure you guys understand that from me especially. I really, really appreciate the time you put in the stuff. So we won't have a happy 4th of July. Enjoy your hot dogs and your hamburgers and your corn.
Thank you. Staff, you did hear that was Commissioner Wilkerson that said you could take an extra day to get back to his questions. The rest of us are exempt, the rest of us are exempt from that.
Understood.
After hours and weekends. After hours and weekends. Vice Chair/Vice Chair.
All right, any other questions or comments, Commission? With that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Good evening, Vacaville.
City on fire?